Hey guys, it's Konstantin Polyakov, your host, and we are yet on another episode of PRsonalities, the show. We have a very special guest in our studio today. I'm going to do a quick introduction, and I'm going to hold my show Bible because it takes quite some effort. We have the former hostage negotiator, United Nations International Peacekeeper, detective in major crimes, consultant to major news networks for acts of global terrorism and hostage-taking, a guest on SiriusXM, keynote speaker, and author, a writer of the book called Take Control of Your Life that's currently available throughout North America and has been credited for saving lives, Mr. John Paul Nadeau.
Thank you. Nice to be here. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you for coming out.
Paul Nadeau is a former police detective and hostage negotiator. So first, Paul, let's take a look at this. This is the
police detective who completed an exemplary 31-year service career, during which he specialized in hostage and crisis negotiations, international peacekeeping, professional interrogations, and domestic violence sensitivity training. Paul Nadeau is a regular consultant for CBC World News, CNN, Global News, the Toronto Star, and other major media for his hostage negotiations, peacekeeping, and terrorism expertise.
Having retired from police work, Paul is now an international instructor, lecturer, motivational speaker, and the author of Hostage to Myself, a book dedicated to helping others overcome self-sabotaging thoughts that hold them back in life. Paul was the closing speaker at the TEDx Toronto conference last October and is committed to helping people break down barriers that make them, in his words, hostage to themselves. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Yes, welcome.
Former police detective, hostage negotiator, and international peacekeeper, J. Paul Nadeau has spent more than 30 years working with victims and perpetrators and learning from top experts in murder investigations and terrorist attacks. In his new book, Take Control of Your Life, he combines his personal experiences and insights to help readers overcome the self-sabotaging thoughts and attitudes and achieve their goals, and he joins us now.
This is a very special episode in the sense that you've already been with us for yet another episode of PRsonalities before. And we're going to talk about things we talked about last time. We're going to talk about things that have changed. You've been on a tour with your book for the past year. Me alluding to that book, Saving Lives, is actually a true story. Because as Brent is going to pull up on screen next, we have one of your fans and one of the readers for the book. If you want to tell a little bit about that, I think it would be a great introduction to the audience, right from the very, very latest update.
Well, yeah, okay. Now, it is incredible. As an author, we put something out there, and you hope that it's going to get an audience, obviously, you know. And my book is a motivational book. It is a book about dealing with self-sabotage, depression, anxiety. It's a book that covers, the theme that what happens to us doesn't have to define us. It's not so much what happens to us that matters, it's how we react to what happens that does. So when I wrote it, I hoped for an audience. And since writing it, I've received several emails from readers who have told me how it has changed their lives. One homeless man, he didn't write me, but he told his, I guess this is a guy who runs a homeless shelter. He said that book, got him off the streets.
Amazing.
And another person, wrote in and said that they had been a victim of a sexual assault and had not dealt with it until they read my book. And the one note that you're talking about, the one email, was a woman who described in such detail how she had read motivational books before and they never spoke to her. Yeah. And she happened to be in a library and she was picking up some videotapes to watch. And she said, I was planning on killing myself, is what her note said. She said, my life, had been terrible, I'd been abused. She even went into describing how she was abusing her kids, at some point in her life. And she said, your book was in the library. I picked it up, and she said, I started reading it. I couldn't put it down. She said, I went and I ordered a copy. She says, that book never leaves my side. She says, from all the motivational books that she's read, they never reached her, but mine was as though I had written it for her, because it made her realize how beautiful she was and how much life was worth living. And when you get something like that, you know, like it's incredibly touching. You know,
I can imagine.
Well, I feel emotional just talking about it because I never expected the feedback that I've been getting from this book, from having written the book, and the readers are loving it. So yeah, it's been an incredible experience.
I mean, like, you know, it's something to be said about putting your genuine experiences, right? Like you said, you have put all that you have seen, all that you have witnessed, and your own personal also emotions and experience into it. And I guess it really spoke to her directly like that.
Yes, yeah, you know, and when you put yourself into anything, when you become a little bit transparent, and a lot of people are afraid of becoming transparent in life. They're afraid of, you know, being criticized,
judged, by people.
Exactly. But we are all human beings.
That's right.
And we are all sharing the same experiences. And it is amazing that once you humble yourself, or you say, listen, because as a kid, I was a depressed kid. I was an abused kid. And I'm surprised I'm here today. But an event happened to me, you know, that changed my life. But when I shared the fact that I was depressed, the fact that I felt like I needed to be rescued at some point in my life, when your discovery later is that you are your own rescuer. You know, with the help of other people, sure, but you rescue yourself, because if you wait for somebody to rescue you, you could be waiting a long time. You have to really take some positive action in order to free yourself from self-sabotage, depression, anxiety. Yes, counseling is great, you know, like it, and we all need it at some point. We need somebody to listen to us.
That's right.
We're human beings that need to be heard and validated. And we also need to find that personal power within ourselves to change our circumstances and our states of mind. And that is an incredible power that we each have.
Oh, I think the book speaks for exactly that. Take control of your life, right?
It does. That wasn't my original title.
Let's talk about that. What was the title?
Hostage to Myself. Hostage to Myself. You know, really, I prefer that title, Hostage to Myself, because that talks an incredibly a lot about the fact that we do take ourselves hostage. And the theme in the book is the fact that when we start listening to those little voices in our heads that tell us that we're not good enough, you know, that we're not good looking enough, you know, like, or that we could never get that job, or we could never get out of the crisis that we find ourselves into. If we give in to those hostage-taking thoughts, those are self-sabotaging thoughts, then we are hostages to ourselves. The only thing that you need to do to change that, or a number of things that you need to do, is to change your thought pattern, you know, to change your circumstances, you know, to really go inside yourself and change that dialogue. And it's not only adults that suffer from that. And it's like it's on a recording loop. Imagine yourself, you're a good-looking man, you know, so...
Thank you.
You probably have no difficulty asking someone out. A lot of people criticize themselves and say, hey, I'm not good looking enough to ask this woman out. She'll never say hello, you know, she'll never even say hi, you know, whatever. And that is, you know, something that will prevent you from asking somebody out. And that's self-sabotaging behavior. Because, you know, the more you tell yourself that, the less risk you'll take.
And the more you believe it.
And the more you believe it.
The more you believe it. I think that's the scariest part, right? This, what we say out loud to ourselves, and what we say quietly to ourselves. You know, it's something that, it's like a recording in the background that keeps just convincing you of something you may not be.
Exactly, exactly.
Something you may not be, something that you think you are, but something you may not be at all.
And yeah, and you're absolutely right. And the problem with that is that you don't get to live the life that you deserve to live.
It's very true.
At the end of my life, when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to be visited by ghosts of missed opportunities who say, You should have done that. You should have asked that girl out. You should have got that job. You should have tried writing a book. What's wrong with you? No, I don't want to be visited by those spirits. I want to be visited by spirits who give me a high five like this. Hey, man, way to go.
Well done.
What a ride. Glad I was with you, throughout your experiences.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's why I keep trying different things, because I don't want to live in one state or just doing one thing. I need to, the thought came to me, be an actor. Why not? Okay.
Express yourself like that.
Sure, try it. I became an actor, and become a cop. Yeah, sure, why not? Become a hostage negotiator. Sure, why not? And become an author. Sure, why not? Become a scriptwriter. Sure, why not?
Love it.
The thing is, I may not succeed at everything I do, but by God, if I don't give it a shot, I'll never succeed at anything.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a very good way to kind of prepare yourself mentally. You don't need to win every time.
You don't.
But just the ride itself is fun.
It is, and since writing the book, I've had several people come up and say, I really want to write a book. I've had this book in my head for so long, I really want to write a book. And my answer has always been to them, have you started? No, I just want to write a book. It's been on my mind for years or whatever. And I say, how come you haven't started? Lao Tzu said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And Paul Nadeau added to that. But the idea is that you keep moving forward. So if you have something that you are passionate about or that you're dreaming of doing, take a shot and do it and keep moving forward. We become successes by the failures that we often, incur. But we keep moving. Every Rocky movie that we've watched out there. Yo, Adrian, it's me, Rocky, and he gets knocked to the mat. Boom. But he doesn't stay down on the mat.
No.
He keeps getting up, That wonderful speech he says, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. What matters is how many times you get up. And that is a philosophy in life that so many of us are missing out on. We need to realize that life is a gift and that everything, that we desire may be within our reach. But the only way of finding out whether it is if we reach for it. And don't be afraid to risk, being a failure. It's okay. Because the word failure can very quickly change to being, somebody of success.
It's very true, because a lot of the time you're just so busy at it, like so busy, working on your craft, working on your skill, working on whatever that, target is. And you're just so deep in it, you don't see your progress. You feel like you're plateauing, but you're not. You are, by virtue of just doing, by virtue of learning, and by virtue of trying things out, you are slowly advancing into a better version of yourself.
You are, and that's the thing. I think a lot of us fall into the thought that we're not getting anywhere.
I fall for that a lot of the time myself. I have to admit, it's like, it's very temporary. It's, for me, luckily it's very temporary. I would hate to have it permanent, and that's, I guess, what really going to serious, depressing episode would be. But sometimes, things just kind of accumulate and they pile up. And for that one day or for that one moment, in the very, very spur of the moment, you feel like, everything is just falling apart.
Well, see, and that, getting back to my book, you become a hostage to yourself when you begin to think to yourself that you're not getting anywhere.
What if it's going to keep on happening? What if it's going to keep on going like that?
That's right.
What if I'm never going to get out of this?
Yeah, and that takes control of your life.
Yeah.
You're not taking control of your life. Those thoughts are.
That's right.
And that's what you need to change. And there are several ways of changing, but you're right. We all, and nobody is exempt. Nobody will not have those thoughts at some point. Even the greatest successes in our lives, in our worlds, have had those thoughts, and some of them, we never realized just how deeply those thoughts took over. For example, Robin Williams, a man who was an incredible talent.
That's right.
His gift to the world was so profound, and he gave us such joy. But he was a hostage to himself with the thoughts of depression and anxiety, that went on. I can't imagine what his world was like, to the point where he took it.
Yeah.
And we just don't know how many people are suffering from, mental illness or from thoughts of suicide, depression. But it's something that, to a degree, we can really control, and with the help of others, we certainly can.
The quiet killer.
Yeah.
The quiet killer.
Yeah, and it's.
I was also going to say, it's the other side of it is also, when we think of success, we think of it as being a continuous, just stream of good things, right?
Mm-hmm.
We think that success continues endlessly, that people who are successful, they're always successful. They wake up in the morning, they wake up to success, they go to lunch, they have success between and after, and then when they go home at night, they have a little bit of success in the barbecue, and they go to sleep at night, and they're happy all the time.
Right.
But the reality is that success is also temporary. One day you're on top of the world, you're scoring every sale, every opportunity there is, you're getting every single keynote there is in the world, and the next day, you get hurt. You can't go somewhere. You can go to that trip to do that keynote. You can't do that next sales cycle. That is just none of it is working out, and all of a sudden you're in a hole.
Yeah.
But nobody's seeing that but you,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of people, they wouldn't even think of that as, that's just a little setback. But for you, especially if you're very driven, motivated, ambitious, being in bed for a day could really throw you into this rough state where you just really can't come out, and all of a sudden everything is just negative.
Yeah. But the one thing that you said you can never get out is a state of mind. And if you fall into that trap of telling yourself that you can't get out of it,
That's
you're right. Because whatever you convince yourself of, you're right. Like if you say that you can, you can. If you say that you can't, you can't. I can never get out of this rut. Well, somebody inside your mind is going to say, you're right, Konstantin, you can never get out of this. Don't even try. So the two little voices in your head, one says, dude, you're never going to succeed, so settle back.
That's right.
The other voice says, well, wait a minute. You're better than your circumstances. You're stronger than your circumstances. You can get out of here. So we have two wolves, that are working in our brains. The one wants to destroy us. The other one wants to make our lives much better and to release us, to free us. And it's the wolf that you listen to the most that is going to make the most impact in your life. So you can remain depressed, or you can get out of depression and seek help, or find it from inside yourself.
Well, I have to ask it now. We're really coming to a very critical point here. Let's just talk about some recourse you have against that negative voice. How do we amplify the positive?
Well, a lot of times it comes down to examining where you are in your life. And in my book, I have an exercise that I encourage the readers to do. Every once in a while, and I suggest in the beginning every 2 weeks, you should take 10 or 15 minutes to examine your life, a self-examination. And what that means is grabbing a piece of paper and a pen, and on the one side, what's working for you, and on the other side, what's not working for you. So if a relationship is not working, you'll write that down. My relationship with so-and-so is fractured. It needs attention. On the other side, hey, I'm really doing well at my work, or my social life is very good. I'm in good physical condition. Whereas some people might write, I'm in really bad physical condition.
Yeah.
I'm depressed. So when you have these two categories, what's going right, what's going wrong, you examine what's going wrong, and you do it honestly. Okay, why is my relationship with this person fractured, and what can I do about it? See, this requires you to focus on the things that are going well and the things that are not. And it also requires you, if you are committed enough, to make changes on the things that aren't working for you.
Yeah.
To change those, If my relationship with you, Konstantin, was fractured, how would I go about repairing that? Maybe it would be with a phone call or an invitation for coffee.
Yep.
Maybe it would be with me giving you a genuine, I'm sorry, for what's happening here. I'm sorry that we're not connecting. Whatever it is, an apology, whatever,
Yeah.
if you don't try.
You gotta act.
That's right.
You gotta act. If you don't try, nothing's gonna happen.
Nothing's going to happen.
That column with all the negatives will just only probably pile up.
Yeah, wow, that is profound. That's true. It will only pile up. You're right. So if you don't take these examinations on a regular basis to say, okay, what is it? Like maybe you're addicted to something, and I don't know what that addiction is.
Netflix.
Could be, like, hey, I'm watching too many Netflix, you've got to want to change. This is the thing, is that, we can like change, but we've got to want it too,
have to want it.
I remember something that I read once, and I sing, and I love to sing, but I don't play guitar well. I play a little bit, but I don't play it well. And why? Because I really haven't practiced as much as I should.
That's it.
I'm in love with the idea of playing guitar. I'm just not committed to playing guitar.
That's right.
Those guitar players who are committed to it, they work at it every day, and I don't. So you must want it enough to commit yourself to whatever it is. So if it's a fractured relationship, you must want it enough to take whatever action you possibly can to repair that. Does it mean that you're going to? If you and I are in conflict with each other, does it mean that we're going to? It means that we're going to get along? It may not. But the chances of us getting along with me, apologizing to you and starting to build a bridge is greater than if I don't even try.
Absolutely.
But I got to be committed to that relationship.
No, absolutely. You have to believe in it, right? You have to believe that the result is attainable. That's the other side of it too. If you just convince yourself every day that you will never be a great guitar player, you're just going to do it for the sake of it. You're not committing to it. You're not believing in it, right? You have to believe that it's attainable, believe that you can do it, believe that you can be that mental projection of yourself that can shred Slayer solos in your backyard.
That's right.
But if you don't believe in it, how can you possibly commit to that?
Well, right? That's it. And the thing is that you have to remind yourself, and I think a lot of us don't do that, is that we are almost limitless, in our lives. Is that we have great potential, and sure, we can't jump off a building and fly. But short of that, we can do pretty much anything else. When you think about it, look at the successes that some people have, and some of the strengths and accomplishments that some people have reached, and imagine yourself as, why am I not there? And a lot of the short answer to that is you haven't tried. Mm-hmm. You haven't committed yourself. If a relationship is not going well, commit yourself to making that relationship go well.
That's right.
Study everything you possibly can on relationships, and then, put it into action, because we are in control of our own lives if we choose to be, or we can let it or we can let it go.
The choice is yours, ladies and gentlemen. The choice is yours.
It really is. Yeah.
I'm 8. After receiving another beating from my father and feeling defenseless to stop the assaults on my mother, siblings, and I decided to become a policeman so I can arrest people like my father. I'm 17. The police have just left our home after informing my mother and I that my father committed suicide. I feel an overwhelming commitment to do what I had promised myself 10 years earlier. I'm 40. I'm now a detective in the Sexual Assault Division. I have an ability to reach hurt, broken, and angry people. I know there's more I'm destined to do. I'm 48 and have been trained as a specialist in hostage negotiations. While traveling to Paris on a 747, a passenger makes a threat and I successfully negotiate the suspected terrorist into custody. I'm 49. I'm now in Jordan training Iraqi police cadets on human rights and criminal investigations. Terrorists have infiltrated the academy. Sunnis and Shiites sitting beside each other require constant diplomacy. The international instructors' lives, including my own, are at risk. The trust I create allows students to forget their differences in my classroom. Terrorists and criminals are humans first. And by demonstrating our humanity, we may positively influence the decisions and behaviors of those standing on the threshold, deciding which fate they'll choose.
Paul, you know what? Why don't we talk a little bit about the motivation behind all these choices you made? Because we talked a little bit about you going from joining the force to then going on to the international duties of a peacekeeper, and then going on to acting and writing, and then now being a guest speaker on the radio station, right? So there's so much going on, right? And every time that you did that, like you said earlier, you had to believe in it, and you had to commit to it. right? So you talked a little bit about the beginning.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit about that. I think this is the best part about our show. I like talking about this all the time. Like the journey from where you started to how we got to where we are today, right? So your beginning comes from joining the force. What drove you to do that? Because there's got to be something that you found in it that really resonated with you at the time.
Well, yeah, let me go way back,
Please.
to the beginning. My father was a very violent and angry alcoholic who beat my mother, my brother, and I up regularly. And when I say beat, violent beatings. And, that was the life that we knew. I didn't know any other life other than the fact that I feared my father. And he'd lock me in the trunk of a car. He took me to a slaughterhouse when I was 6 years old, and I watched, pigs being slaughtered before my eyes. I don't have too many nice recollections of my father. And I was being brought up with the thought that I could never amount to anything. Even my teachers back then, they were disgusted with me because I acted out in class and I could never pass a test. So they kept pushing me from grade to grade, and I believe that they were doing that because they just didn't want me in their class. They're just like, this guy, okay, 49%? No, I'm changing that to 56%. He's in your grade next year.
You deal with it.
You deal with it, exactly. So, Paul Nadeau, the failure, up until grade 7. And, that was a time where, I started looking at girls and, and being attracted to them, but I was the bad boy, I was the bad, stupid boy. And I remember one teacher, and I don't know whether he did this on purpose or not, but he gave the class a kind of rah-rah, we're going to pass this test speech.
Yep.
He says, you know what? He says, we got a test coming up next week, and I expect everybody to pass it, except for you, Nadeau. He says, I already know you are going to fail. I thought, wow, okay,
thank you,
I'm singled out, thank you very much. And of course the girls are going, yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, oh Lord. So I went back home having been embarrassed in front of my entire class and thinking, you know what, maybe I should study. And I don't know how to study because I didn't develop studying skills. But I committed myself, grade 7, committed myself to studying this test. And then on the day of the test, I wrote it and I felt pretty confident about myself. I thought it was pretty good. Now, what this teacher what he customarily did is that he would call the student with the lowest grade to the front of the class to pick up their paper. And that's what he did with me all the time. I was the first one. He'd say, Nadeau, 42. So I would take the walk of shame to grab my paper. Well, on this particular day, he never called my name the first. He never called my name the second. Never called my name the third. Never called my name the fourth. And this went on half of the class.
Everybody's listening. Everybody's paying attention.
Well, all the students are, when he got halfway through the class, the students were looking at me like this. They were going, why aren't you up there?
What's going on?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, and I'm looking going, I have no idea. Now, my thought process was, you did really, really, really bad, and he's going to center you up really bad. But then that other little voice in my head said, you know what, Paul? You knew those answers.
That's right.
You studied and you knew those answers. So we're down to 3 people in the class who have
wow.
Yes. Everybody else has got their papers. They're sitting there. They got their papers. They're like this, and they're looking at their mark. And there's 3 of us who have not been called up yet. My cousin Lise, who was a Browner, and Giselle Calder, who was a Browner. The 2 of them competed for the top marks all the time. There was a competition going on between the 2. The next one to be called was my cousin.
Ooh, so, wow.
So it was Giselle and I. And I was the next. So second highest. Second highest. But you know what that did for me, Konstantin? That was a moment in my life where I realized that I could do it if I put the effort into it. And it changed my life. So I learned in grade 7 that whatever you give you get in return.
That's right.
You know, so if you put your heart and soul into something, which I did in that studying, you can accomplish great things. And I've never looked back. So going from an abused background, not believing in myself, being told by teachers and my father that I would never amount to anything, I realized that I am not defined by what other people tell me or by, you know, these negative thoughts that other people may have of me. I'm defined by what I tell myself and what I choose to do. And nothing should stand in your way from trying your absolute best at whatever it is. You know, like, and that theory and that thought, you know, led me to become the policeman that I swore I would be at the age of 7, because here's how that happened. At the age of 7, I looked up at my dad one day and I thought, I'm going to be a policeman so I can arrest you. I never said it out loud, otherwise I would have been beaten, right? But I thought, no, I want to arrest you one day, Dad, you know? And, you know, he killed himself when I was 17.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
You know what? I am too, because I really think that he could have got help, you know? But he killed himself with the same .22 rifle he killed Santa Claus with when I was also 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks before Christmas, and my brother and I were excited about Santa Claus coming to town, you know, my younger brother and I. So we're standing on the landing of our home, and 2 weeks before Christmas, and, you know, we were delighted, and my father walked in from outside, and he had the .22 rifle in his hand, and he looked at both of us, and he said, "There's not going to be not going to be a Christmas this year. I just killed Santa Claus."
What?
Yep, not going to be a Christmas this year. I just killed Santa Claus. And he went and he put his rifle downstairs.
What a bad man.
Well,
that's a ruined Christmas childhood / traumatized
No kidding,
childhood.
no kidding. I know. And I see you laughing there, Brandon,
Oh, wow.
in disbelief.
Oh, wow.
But that's, you know, that was my Christmas gift.
Jesus.
And I stopped believing in Santa Claus, you know, that very day because he was dead. And my father must have had a moment of remorse because a week later, some guy in a big Buick drives up the street, you know, like with another guy, and he's got a Santa Claus suit on, and he's got a mask, and he comes into the house going, ho, ho, ho. And he wanted me to sit on his lap, and I just pulled his mask off, and I said, Santa Claus is dead.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So, you know, I mean, I had no idea where I was going with this whole thing, other than to say that shit happens in our lives, you know, like, but they don't have to define the rest of our lives. So coming from that abusive kind of a background to not believing in yourself, to a moment where you realize that you are greater than your circumstances, to choose, you know, your destiny is what can create a remarkable life for you. And it really is within your power to do it. And my defining moment was in grade 7. So I became the policeman that I swore I would be at the age of 7. And then being a policeman, I thought, now where do I go from here? I want to be a detective. So I did everything I possibly could to become a detective. 5 years later, I became a detective.
Right on.
The opportunity to become a hostage negotiator came up. And I have a story, my God, I'll tell you a little bit later about
Please.
this story, my first crisis negotiation that led me to the thought of becoming a hostage negotiator, so I went for that. When the opportunity to go to the Middle East as a peacekeeper came up, I thought, wow, I could do my part in
the world.
In the world, yeah, in fighting terrorism, so I did that.
Incredible.
You know, even to writing the book. Now, that's another story, but you know, I mean, I never thought I would write a book. You know, I never did. And I'll get into that a little bit later on because I've been talking too much.
And that's good, and that's good. I mean, all those things really led us to where we are today. We're sitting here in the studio talking about all the accolades and all the things that led us to today, and the book that literally, as we said earlier, has actually been saving lives, right? So you've been saving lives all your life.
Yes, you
It
know
sounds
what?
like it.
Isn't it funny? You know, isn't it funny? That is my mission too. I remember I talked a suspected terrorist off a 747 in Paris, France. 350 people on the plane who could have been killed.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, and I have saved a lot of lives, you know, as a police officer. It seems that I feel like Forrest Gump sometimes, and I'll tell you why. Stuff happens to me, and after it happens, I go, I can't believe that just happened. You know, like, I mean, you know, I ended up working with Oprah Winfrey, you know, like, and I never thought I would be working with Oprah Winfrey. I ended up having, you know, tea with the Deputy Prime Minister of Britain in the desert, the two of us, surrounded by bodyguards, you know, and I never thought that would happen. I never thought that I would accomplish everything that I have, you know, and I'm only getting started. You
Love
know?
it.
Yeah, there's so much more that I want to accomplish. But, and again, that comes from telling yourself that you can do certain things and that nothing should prevent you from trying, you know, and I wish I could get that message out more to people. And now with my keynote talks and, you know, being on the circuit, podcast circuit, on the news circuit, Sirius XM is giving me an opportunity to share my story, you know, and I love that.
It's incredible, right? Like you have to really have the passion for it. And it's like a dream come true. You do what you love every day.
Yeah, you do.
That's the truth behind it, right? Like it's also not because it's something that you have to do. It's not a burden. I mean, like it's a lot of it is heavyweight, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's what you want to do. It's your passion. You want to save lives. You want to help people. Because I almost feel like, in a way, you almost wish somebody was there when you were growing up who did the same thing too.
You
right?
would, yeah.
It's like it's such a natural thing to want to help people, but yet, you know, we just don't see it enough.
We don't. You know, and sometimes, like I said, bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
And you know, I retired from the police department in 2010. And it was a decision that I came to. I had 31 years on the job. And I thought to myself, well, I can continue working as a police officer because I've done so much on the police department. It was great. But I was also doing some film and television acting, and it was going quite well. So I had two careers going on. I was a polygraph examiner at the time, and I was almost a full-time actor. So, you know, that ended up being long days, and I thought, you know, the film and television has taken off. I really love this. So I spoke to my wife at the time, and I said, you know, I'm thinking about leaving the department because I can get my pension, full pension, and I can, you know, pursue my acting full time. And she was supportive of that, so I ended up retiring. But about 3 or 4 months after my retirement, she announced she wanted a divorce because she had been having an affair.
I see.
That really knocked the sails, you know, the wind out of my sails, as they say, because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And I left the acting for a period of time. I left that behind, and I had to redefine myself. So bad things sometimes, you know, happen to people, and then you have to reinvent yourself, or you have to decide, where do I go from here? Do I give up, or do I continue going? And again, this is where you're called upon, you know, to reach deep down inside yourself and redefine yourself and say, my circumstances don't dictate my future. I am better than my circumstances. And sometimes things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
That's right.
And when I look back at that, a lot of things, great things have happened because of that divorce. You know, it wasn't the right relationship, it wasn't, you know. But since that time, great things have happened. So, you know, the acting had to be put on hold while I decided how I was going to rebuild my life. And since then, incredible things have happened.
That's right.
You know, like I've been on a TED Talk. You know, I'm now a keynote speaker. I've now written a film script. You know, and I'm doing things that I'm very, very passionate about. But again, that's, you know, that's the Rocky analogy, I say, you know, like, because when you're divorced or when you find out you're going to be divorced, it's like getting, you know, knocked down to the mat and saying, hey, pal, stay down there. No, I'm not going to stay down there. I'm going to get back up on my feet because that's what I need to do. That's what I want to do. I'm going to win at this game of life, you know, so that's my philosophy.
Well, that's, I mean, any kind of life event like that, you know, I mean, that will set anybody else back.
It would.
It's a tough, you know, tough situation to get out of because especially when there is somebody else that you've been with, I'm guessing, for quite a few years, right? Like it's somebody that you see every day, somebody you talk to every day, and then all of a sudden something very negative like this happens, and it really rocks your world. It helps. You have to really redefine who you are in a way, right? Because you've defined yourself as part of this unit.
You really
now
do.
you no longer are part of the unit. Now you're on your own.
Yeah.
And you could feel lonely, I'm sure. And everybody probably does when that happens. But you have to look deep down. You have to figure out who you really are. Right? Make yourself happy.
Self-examination.
Self-examination.
You're talking about that right there. Is like, who am I? Why did this happen? How can I get back on my feet, and how can I change
What
things?
makes me happy? Like, besides this thing, what else makes me happy, right? How can I outweigh this negative with so much positive that it will stop mattering?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, the other side of it, because some of these things we put a lot of weight on. We live in a society where if you are expected like everybody else to go to university after high school and you don't get in, or if you don't finish that university, you're a failure all of a sudden, right?
Right.
There's all this pressure. There's all this expectation. Let's say with divorce, like you go through that, you lose that significant other. It's a very rocky boat. So,
it is.
Again, kudos to you for coming on top out of that so many times, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
From the very, very early time, from finding out that Santa Claus is dead to finding out, about that negative side of your relationship. I mean, that's it's hard to deal with, but it is about the mental state. It's about convincing yourself that you are better than all of this.
It really is, because none of us are going to go through life unscathed.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. We are 4 people in this room right now, and each of us have gone through shit.
That's right.
We've gone through something awful, or we may be going through something awful right now. And, it is, again, it's not so much what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond to what happens to you that does. So nobody is going to go through this world unscathed. Everybody has got a story, but everybody has the ability to take control of their lives, And sometimes that means going to another person, going for therapy, whatever it takes to get to where you need to be is what you need to do, But we have that power.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Paul, why don't we just delve a little bit more into, we made some points we're going to return to, and I want to return to what you're working on right now, as well as what inspired you to work on what you're working on right now, which is your screenplay.
Right.
Right. I love that story. I'd like for you to tell us that story one more time. When you were a peacekeeper out working internationally, when you were out there dealing with terrorism, dealing with hostages, dealing with all kinds of conflicts. There's one conflict that I think was a defining moment in your life, in your career, that I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about.
Sure.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. In 2004, I had the opportunity of applying to the United Nations to go on a peacekeeping mission in Jordan. And the mission itself would be to train Iraqi police officers in human rights, how to take, how to defend themselves, how to investigate crime. Iraq was in need of a lot of help back then, and they were at war, obviously. So I got selected to go, and I arrived in Jordan in 2005. Now, the thought of going to the Middle East scared me, because I'd been watching CNN, and sometimes CNN give you some pretty sad news and bad news, and
those are not peaceful years either.
No, they were not. They were very unsettled years and very scary times. But I wanted to do my part in fighting terrorism, so I went down there, and I was a teacher in a class. And every 2 weeks, I would get about 50 to 55 Iraqi students. And I was teaching criminal investigations, human rights. And so I asked myself, how am I going to reach these cadets, these police officers, and make them feel comfortable? The only thing that I could, the thing that I came to realize is that, we are so similar than we are different, right? We're more similar than we are different. What would I want to hear if some stranger from another country was standing in front of me? What would I want to hear? Well, this is what I came up with. I would go to the class and I said, listen, I'm not here to tell you anything. I'm here to share my experiences with you, and hopefully you can take what I've discovered and apply it to your world. I'm here to treat you with dignity and respect. I want to make this class exciting. I want to make this class fun, and I'm here to learn as much from you as you are from me. And I meant it. Like I would say it very, very sincerely. You know, it is an honor for me to be here. Now, if I were a student sitting in a class and a foreign instructor told me those words, I'd want to hear what he had to say. Because number one, he's making me feel comfortable about being there. And
That's
number
right.
two, he's reaching out to me and saying he's not going to tell me anything, he's sharing information with me. So I got along with my classes. And being an actor, you know, I'm looking at a class of 55 Iraqi cadets. Some of them were Sunnis, some of them were Shiites, some of them were educated, some of them had never spent a day in school.
Complete mix.
A complete mix. And on top of that, we had terrorists in the class who had infiltrated the academy wearing a police uniform undetected.
Is that right?
That's right. And I was alerted of that, you know, saying that you don't know how many terrorists you'll have in your class, but be guaranteed there are terrorists in your class. We're trying to feed them out. We just don't have the intelligence right yet. So I would treat everybody the same way, dignity and respect. And you know, my acting came into play because of the fact that these students, some of them didn't have an education. So if I wanted them to learn a lesson, I'd say, okay, you know, so Muhammad, you're going to be the policeman tomorrow, and Abdul, you're going to be the robber, and you know, I'd pick a couple of other people that were going to be the you know, in the store when the robbery goes down. We're going to watch how this goes. They had fun doing that.
Amazing.
Yeah, and at the end of every class, you know, because these guys were getting up at 4:30 in the morning. 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
They were doing, you know, 2 hours of exercise, and they were getting ready for class. So by the time they get, you know, to my class at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're ready to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Some of them had never exercised before, which is something else. Imagine this. You're being torn from your country, and, you know, and the money, you know, like the $800 American is going to feed your family for a year when you get back home. All you need to do is spend 8 weeks at an academy and go back, you know, and with $800 American, it will feed your family. That was appealing to them, but some of them didn't. They had no clue why they were there. They were just pretty much scooped off the streets and placed in this police academy.
Wow.
But you know, so we got that at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're so tired. I had to make it exciting for them, the acting, and at the end of the day, 40 minutes before we were done, I would say, does anybody here know how to sing? Or would anybody here like to sing or tell a story? And well, you know, a couple of hands would go up. We had the greatest time.
Amazing.
Some of the singers were amazing, and they'd grab those empty jugs of water that we had, you know, those blue jugs, those 5-gallon, and some of them would beat the drums, and it was so great. So for 40 minutes at the end of the class,
You guys had fun.
we were laughing. I had Sunnis, Shiites, and terrorists all laughing and telling stories and getting along.
Amazing.
So tell me that you cannot bring peace, you know, by treating people with dignity and respect. You certainly can, you know, by communicating. So all that to say that one of the students in that class was a terrorist, and he was actually a terrorist leader.
Wow.
I did not know that. And so after his 2 weeks, he started chatting with me. So he would come to me after class and ask me questions, and we got along very well. I had no idea that I was talking to a terrorist, obviously, but you know, he was interested in what I had to say. He was interested in the way that I treated him, and he was talking a little bit about his country. So we got along. So 2 weeks after, you know, he goes on to another class because they rotated from one class to another. They went on to firearms, or they went on to explosives, whatever. So I hadn't seen him for about 3 or 4 weeks, but I got transferred into the advocacy and counseling division, which was great. So I was no longer an instructor, I was a counselor and an advocate. And one student came up to me and said, the academy is going to be attacked. And we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but it's going to happen in the next little while. And there's going to be several of the students who are going to attack you. And so when I got that information, I went to our security and I said, listen, we're coming under attack. And what had been happening was that no weapons, no firearms got through the academy. So we were lucky about that. But what the students were doing, the terrorists and their supporters, they were going around, this is in the desert, and there are rocks and sticks and sharp things, and they were collecting and, honing weapons to attack us with. And so I alerted our security department, and you're on mission, you don't get to go home. It's not like, hey, I heard there's going to be a terrorist attack, and I go home. It's like, no, you're here to do, your job.
Right. You're part of the team.
You're part of the team, buddy. And and I wouldn't think of going home, but because I was an advocate and counselor, I would get to the academy early on in the morning before all the other instructors came to the academy, because we didn't stay on site. We lived, about an hour away from the academy. The academy was in the desert. It was in a secret location. It wasn't all that secret. Everybody knew where it was, and we were expecting a missile. Actually, that's what we were most afraid of.
Oh,
it was a missile attack, because there was a cafeteria, a canteen there with 1,500 people, 3 times a day, or sitting down, 3,000 people. Anyways,
Jesus.
That's what we were thinking about. So one morning, I arrived at the academy with my partner, who was also an advocate and partner in the counseling division. And our job was to get there early so that we could go see the director with papers, that would suggest certain cadets go back home, because a lot of people were suffering from mental illness, depression,
Away from home, just simply being away from home.
a lot of it, yeah. But not only that, because they were so desperate in getting cadets, some of them were actually getting scooped who already had mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And you could tell, so I had a number of recommendations for the director to send some cadets home, and that's what we would do for the first hour.
Yeah.
So we'd gone to the director's office on this particular morning and handed in our papers, and then Jarmo, my partner in the advocacy division, he and I were walking back to our building, and from around another building, there were about 40 armed cadets that attacked us, and they had sticks and rocks and everything, and they circled us. And I remember standing there, and we were both like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? Because we weren't armed. And Jarmo, who was about a foot taller than me, it's almost like he's Chewbacca, and I'm standing there, and he's up like that, and he's patting me on the head saying, this is going to hurt, little buddy. And at the time, we both knew that this was it, and I really thought, for a few moments, this is going to be the end of my life,
Wow.
Yeah. And the thought of my daughters came into my mind, and no sooner did that happen, we got grabbed and we started getting beaten. And we were fighting, but 40 people against one.
Yeah, there's no way you're getting out of that.
These guys had sticks and rocks, and they were beating us. And I was going down. And as soon as I got, knocked to the ground, trying to get back up, I could hear Jarmo and all these, yelling and screaming. But I also heard one other thing. I heard one cadet from the very back yelling my name, Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul. And he started yelling something in Arabic. And the moment he started yelling something in Arabic, it all stopped. They stopped beating us, and they started moving away. And he was giving commands. This guy was giving commands. And it was almost as though, like the parting of the Red Sea, the cadets moved away from us. And when I gained a little bit of composure, like I started to look around, I was looking for the guy who was calling my name, and it was that cadet, from my class about 3 or 4 weeks earlier. And he reached over and he grabbed my hand and he says, Mr. Paul, it's time for you to leave. He says, it's not going to be a good day. So he saved my life. And he turned out to be the terrorist leader. He didn't know that I was going to be the first one attacked.
That's crazy.
Yeah, when he saw it was me, he put a stop to it. So Jarmo and I left, and we called the security division, and we were able to stop all the internationals from coming in that day. They were kept at the gate, so nobody got in. We got out.
Nobody got hurt, really?
Nobody got hurt.
Wow.
So,
Amazing.
what could have ended up in several deaths was averted, because this terrorist, decided to spare my life.
Incredible.
So, yeah, and that, that is such a, I credit that man for me being here, obviously. if I wasn't, beaten to death, I would have been beaten badly.
That's right.
And I think their mission was to kill us because we were
Sounds
told,
like it, yeah.
Well, we were told their mission was to kill internationals. They wanted headlines. What? You're in a police academy, the biggest police academy in the world. If you kill internationals,
they're not doing their job, kind of a thing. Like the forces are not doing their job.
That's right. Yeah, and the terrorists wanted great headlines.
Just
what
headlines.
better headline to say that 15 international instructors were killed today at the Jordanian International Police Training Center by terrorists who infiltrated the academy. Every terrorist cell would say, "Hey,
yeah.
that was me."
That's right.
So that was, that was. When I first started telling you this story, the way in which I treated everybody with dignity and respect, I credit for having saved my life, which is why I am such a, I want us all, to begin treating us, treating everybody with that dignity and respect, because what you give is what you usually get in return.
That's
and
right.
I think right now we are building too many bridges. There's a president out there who is building walls and inciting a lot of anger and hatred. We're seeing a rise in white supremacy. We're seeing beatings of people in the gay community. Why is this all happening? For a while back, just a few years ago, I thought most things were going, relatively
into positive,
well.
yeah. Positive.
But now it just seems to have flipped.
It's like a cycle, right? We have, we have good leaders, we have bad leaders, and unfortunately, we're just the public is, in a way, a victim. In a way, I guess, is an accomplice for getting along with that kind of leadership. And I just hope that in the end of the day, when we tally up all the good things that are happening to us and all the bad things that are happening to us, I just hope that the positive column is prevailing.
Not only that, if it's going so bad, which it is, it's your responsibility and my responsibility and everybody else's responsibility out there to do something about it. And what do I mean? It's not enough to write a little comment on Facebook that you don't agree with what's going on. If there's something that really disgusts you, you need to get a hold of someone in your area that can do something about it, or you need to do something about it. And one of the things that we need to do is start talking to one another. Start talking to strangers, start welcoming, people, start sharing, how many times do we stand in line? We stand in line, maybe at the LCBO or waiting for a movie or whatever. How many of us turn around and say, "Hey, how's your day going?" And start something like that. Or you're sitting on a subway.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
You're sitting on a subway and you're thinking to yourself, why don't I just say hello to this person? And you do. And then all of a sudden a great conversation happens. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is, what religion it is, we are more similar than we are different. So let's just start talking to ourselves. We're brothers and sisters after all. We were all born out of Africa. Your blood is my blood. You're my brother.
That's right.
And so if I don't start treating you like family, and if I ignore you, then we are really ignoring a wonderful opportunity to make this world a better place.
And I think we're also crediting too much to the fact that we all speak different languages. You were in the Middle East, educating cadets that probably were growing up knowing very little English.
Yeah,
right?
well, they didn't know anything.
When they were there, how did you even communicate with people?
Language assistants.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had language assistants, Jordanian language assistants. So I would say one or two lines, and they would translate. And and I realized that maybe 20% of the Jordanians and the Iraqis might have had English.
Yeah.
But one language that was fairly common was French, and I speak French.
Oh,
so
that's right.
when I started speaking French, I realized that maybe 40% or 50% of the
Doing a
people
little
I
better,
could
yeah.
communicate with. But yeah, for the most part, in standing in front of a classroom, you would be my language assistant, and I would say to my language assistants, "Listen, I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit animated. So if I jump on this table and I start yelling and screaming, a message out, I want you jumping on that table, doing the same thing." So it was fun. I had one language assistant who was a real bummer. He would just sit there and he'd go, you know, like that, you know. And I'm standing on a table, you know, like going wild, and he's sitting there going, you know.
But I think you going wild on a table and using gestures and like really trying to, I think communication a lot of the time doesn't necessarily come down to words. It comes down to looking in the eyes, to making that message really count by having that connection, talking to your audience, jumping a little bit, right, waving the hands up in the air. And by that very action, you are engaging them in the conversation without them even understanding the word you're saying.
You're right. You're right.
So we should be less afraid of talking to strangers. We should be less afraid of showing emotion and waving hands up in the air and getting our message across, no matter who it is. Like you said, right?
Yeah.
We have to start talking to each other and start talking about things that matter.
Do you know how many, and you're absolutely right, do you know how many criminals confessed to me because of the way that I treated them? How many fights I got out of just by the way, you know, just by putting up my hands and saying, listen, we can work this out.
That's right.
You know, we can work this out. You know, we can. There's a lot of things that we can do. We need to be passionate and believe in ourselves and believe in a message. It's a common message, a common theme. Yeah.
Paul, you know, it's I can talk to you for hours about this. This is so motivational, right? So inspirational. I mean, again, I like to always mention that, you know, coming from a different country, coming into this world, into the Western world, for me it was a big change. Seeing how things are done differently, seeing how people are, you know, how they talk to each other differently. But in the end of the world, in the end of the day, at the end of the world, we need to find out what matters the most is that we are all here together. We're all here to improve this society, to improve this community, to enjoy life together, right? To get the best out of everyone, so that everyone has an impact and a message and a word and something to get out there, so that we all feel part of the same, part of one unit.
Right. Yeah.
And then you'll never feel lonely. You'll never feel like you have to, you know, be hard on yourself. You never have to worry about whether you're worthy or whether you can get out in the morning and get your job done right? Because we are, in the end, we're all in it together.
You're right, and that's been one of my philosophies as well, is that I imagine, you know, the way I look at it is that we are, you know, imagine being on a boat, a rowboat, you know, with the rest of the world. And beside me is you know, and Brandon is beside you know, and then there's John, and we've all got our oars, and we're pulling, and we're pulling. We're trying to reach a particular destination. And one day I'm so exhausted I can't do it. So you reach over and you say, I've got you today, Paul. You know, and I say, hey man, thanks, I needed that. And so the next day I'm pulling again, I'm pulling my weight, I'm moving forward. And then Brandon realizes that you need, you know, a little bit of help. So he reaches out and says, I've got you today. And then John does the same thing. So you know what, we all are in it together. And it is our responsibility to take someone's oar, you know, take somebody's weight off their shoulders once in a while and say, it's okay, I've got you today. You know, because we are in it together. We were not born in pods. We were born in a family to depend on one another. We were raised, you know, to be independent, but also to depend on each other, because we are a community. We are a social society. And we need to lean on others in order to make it in this world. And that's a good thing, because that's the way it was intended to be. Right now, we are living in a disconnected world. And I don't like the fact that people are suffering from tunnel vision, and they don't recognize the beauty in the people around them, and that they can change this world. You know, like they can change a little bit of this world.
A little bit at a time.
A little bit at a time. Yeah.
Little changes every day.
That's it.
Little changes about how you look at yourself, how you look at people around you, how you look at your relationships, how you look at your personal development, how you look at your work, your business, how you look, how you feel, right?
Exactly.
All those things.
Exactly.
Paul, I think we're coming closer to the end of the show. I'm going to do something we traditionally do with every single episode. I like to give our guests an opportunity to give maybe a couple of tips, 2 or 3, that you think would be valuable from this conversation today. And I think it's really just a way to summarize what you've been talking about for the past little while. So why don't you go right ahead and give us a few things to take away.
Sure. Well, one of the greatest lessons, as I said a little bit earlier, that I discovered earlier on, and it's not something that it was an epiphany, it's been something that everybody knows, is that we are more similar than we are different to one another. So when you see someone, imagine yourself in their shoes, you know, and you know, if you're in a negotiation, for example, and you are, going to make a recommendation or an offer or something like that, imagine how that's going to be received by the person. Is it something that they will be feeling comfortable with? Imagine them, in your shoes. Like how, are they going to respond to what you have to say? And if you think it's going to be harsh or a little bit difficult, then you need to change the way in which you approach
Empathy.
it. Yeah, it's empathy.
You have to be empathetic.
Exactly. So that is, discovering that people are more similar to you than they are different is such a key. The other key that I would like to leave people with is to beat self-sabotage, those little voices in your head. You can change the dialogue in your head. You can change your circumstances. It takes effort sometimes. It takes changing your environment. It takes going to people and asking for help. But by all means, never sabotage yourself to the point where you will never, do your utmost best to be your very best.
I like that.
Yeah, and the last one is that, we talked about this, to know you, like you, and trust you.
Yes, we didn't
even touch on that. But those, people will cooperate with you, and they will deal with you in a business sense, on a personal sense. When you want something from somebody, and we all do, right? We all ask and we all negotiate. But when you want something from somebody, there's three things that must exist. They must know you, like you, and trust you. And it doesn't take long to get to know you, like you, and trust you. I did it in a very short period of time. Now, does that mean that they're going to know you intimately? No. They're going to know you enough to like you and trust you. And that's when you can ask for what you want in life. And that may just be sitting down and having a conversation with somebody for 5 minutes. For example, how many of us think of asking for a deal at a store?
Yeah.
You don't.
Why not?
What's holding you back? But you can't just say, hey, can you give me 25% off? They're going to say no,
No.
But if you strike a conversation, say, hey, how's your day going today? It must be really busy around here. You guys got a nice place here. It really is nice. Now, that's not kissing up. That's just being social.
Conversation.
It's conversation.
Talking to the other person.
And they look at you and they think, this is a little bit different. My day was going pretty bad, but now Konstantin is making my day a little bit better. And then you say, I don't know if there's any room for a little bit of negotiation here, but you think you might be able to do something on the price? And then, why not? If you don't ask, you don't get.
Maybe there's a promotion.
There could be. Or maybe they have room, but nobody's ever asked them. And I remember I was in the Bay once, and I bought something, and I was about to leave, and I said, shoot, it's cheaper in this other store. The guy said, well, if you would have asked, I would have given it to you for that price. So a lot of us forget to ask. But yes, people will give you more when they know you, like you, and trust you. When they feel that you are supportive of them, and when they feel that there's something in common with them, and when they feel that they can cooperate and you can work together. So those are my
put out positive vibes, put out positive energy, right? Like you said, things like this goes back to even what you were doing in the Middle East, where you were caught in this just traumatizing experience in a way, where you're being caught by these cadets. They're attacking internationals, but because they knew and they liked you, and they trusted you, that man felt like he owed you something. It felt like he owed you respect and dignity that you gave him as well, right? Same as at the Bay when you were buying that item, whatever that was. Yeah. It sounds like by the end of it, he actually did get to know you and like you, and he got to trust you, but you just never asked him.
I just never asked, and I'm always one to ask. On this particular day, I never thought of it, but yeah, you're right. Yes.
That's like a certain outlook on life. Just keep your eyes open. Start conversations, put out positive energy, get people to know you, to like you, and trust you. And good things will happen.
That's it.
And you can ask for things too.
That's right. The key to negotiation. See, negotiations in life is really about building rapport and establishing relationships. And it's not about asking without giving something in return, And what we give, we usually get in return. So if I smile at you, a complete stranger, you're likely to smile back.
That's right.
If I give you the finger, you're likely to give me the finger too. So we usually get what we give, and I believe in that. Like when you approach, it doesn't matter how violent it could be. When you approach somebody, but with your open hands or whatever, they're usually going to respond in the same.
That's it.
Yep.
That's the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Jean-Paul Nadeau.
Thank you.
Paul, it's just such an honor to have you here. I will say once more, the book is out in stores. Take Control of Your Life. We spoke a lot about it today. There is so much more to learn, I'm sure, from just opening that very first chapter to closing that very last page. There is such great, great feedbacks, and I would highly encourage all of you, whoever is looking to learn a little more about yourself, looking to expand your journey into who you really are and what really matters to you, to pick up that book tomorrow in store. Read it. Reach out to Paul.
It's on Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, and across the world right now. So.
Get it and then tell Paul about it.
We'll make sure we have a link.
And we'll have we'll have a link right here,
Thanks.
right below me here as well. Brendan, just make sure that. And again, just explore and talk to people and put out positive energy. And I think there's just so much to take away from today about doing just that.
Yeah, and remember that you can take control of your life no matter what is happening to you right now, no matter what you're going through, the adversity and setbacks that you may have experienced. It is entirely on how you respond to what's happening to you that can make the difference. And once you start to believe in yourself, that is when you can really change the world and change your world.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Jean-Paul Nadeau, our guest. Please make sure to follow, subscribe, and share. He's extremely active on the media, and you will probably be listening to him on SiriusXM after this. But again, make sure to follow, subscribe, and share. Guys, the pocket broker here, Konstantin Polyakov, your host. Make sure to follow me on Instagram as well. We have a very, very active campaign going on there as well. Make sure that you follow PRsonalities, comment, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you guys very, very shortly. Thank you.